So the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal is imminent, the dawn of a new console, and eventual new generation of Pokemon, which is great. But it also means we've gone this entire console generation without any sort of re-release of the classic Pokemon games. Back in 2016, Nintendo re-released the Generation 1 games on the 3DS, giving them a whole new run in the modern gaming scene, and it worked really well, now fit with wireless functionality. For a lot of fans, this was the first time they got to experience the originals, as well as trade their Pokemon to newer games, since it had compatibility with Pokemon Bank. It wasn't just about playing the old games again, this compatibility made those games feel alive again, in a way we hadn't seen before, and a way emulators can't replicate. Players could catch their Pokemon in Red and Blue, and then transfer them to Sun and Moon. It was fantastic. The following year they dropped Generation 2 games on the 3DS, and that was also major for fans of classic Pokemon. When the Nintendo Switch launched, and they started rolling out the Switch Online service with classic Nintendo consoles, I think we all assumed that classic Pokemon games were on their way, especially when they launched the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance sections. I mean, they added Pokemon Snap, the trading card video game, and even the Stadium games, which felt like teasers, especially with Stadium's whole purpose being to import your Game Boy Pokemon to battle in a 3D environment. But despite all that, we never got the actual main series Pokemon games. But there have been many whispers and rumors over the years, claims of Nintendo testing the link cable function for example. But the big question is why they never launched. Maybe they were holding off for a bigger moment. Maybe they didn't want to compete with their newer Kanto game Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Or maybe the timing just wasn't right. Multiple Pokemon Presents went by, and all we got was hype and frustration of no classic release news. With a Switch 2, the timing makes perfect sense. Now I don't think we're getting classic re-releases next year, but we're about to hit the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, which is a huge milestone for the franchise, and I feel like Nintendo loves to celebrate these anniversaries with something big, just like they did for the 20th anniversary of Pokemon with a re-release of classic games on 3DS. Maybe they initially planned to drop these during the 25th anniversary, but for whatever reason, they just never did. One theory I have is that maybe Pokemon found themselves in a situation of balancing nostalgia with new content. We already had a brand new Kanto game in the wild, along with 2 Sinnoh games releasing around the 25th anniversary. There's also the aspect of not wanting to shift hype away from BDSP, with even more classic top-down Pokemon titles. So here's my prediction. Pokemon Red and Blue will drop on the Switch 2 as part of their online service, or possibly as separate virtual console titles around the time of Pokemon Day 2026. This would mirror what they did with the 3DS during the 20th anniversary. The Pokemon Company loves these kind of moments. It's perfect timing, it drives fan excitement, and it feels like a full circle moment for the franchise. Plus, assuming the Switch 2 will bring over the Switch Online infrastructure, they could easily add features like compatibility with Pokemon Home, or trading and battling over the internet, making the experience even better than it was on the 3DS. You have to remember that dropping the classic Pokemon games with full online functionality is already a huge deal, so of course they want to save it for the right occasion. I have no doubt that if they dropped classic Pokemon titles on the Switch Online service, it would be the hottest games in the library by far, simply due to the online features that the service brings. Then you have the fact that the 3DS eShop has now closed, meaning you cannot get these virtual console titles anymore, so bringing them back only makes sense. Retro gaming is bigger than ever, and Nintendo clearly knows it. Pokemon is one of their biggest franchises, and there's obviously a huge appetite for their classic titles. With the Switch 2 likely having an expanded online library, it's the perfect time to bring these games back. Younger players who never experienced the originals would get to see where it all started, while longtime fans would get that perfect blend of nostalgia and the convenience of modern technology on a current Nintendo console. Think about how many people would love the ability to transfer classic Pokemon into newer games again, especially directly to Generation 10, which is rumored to drop during the 30th anniversary. It's a win-win for everyone, and I can't wait to see where they go from there. But yeah, my prediction is that they won't mention it next year at all. Next year is all about Pokemon Legends ZA, their most ambitious game yet. In my opinion, it would be the worst timing, especially right before Pokemon's biggest year, which is on the horizon. But I wouldn't complain either. But what do you think? And how do you think this ties into the bigger picture of Pokemon's future? Let's get a conversation going in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's definitely an exciting time, that's for sure. So let's talk about it. And until next time, trainers,